Hey, everybody, this is Kenny. Welcome back to the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. I got to sit down and have a great talk with Chris Lalomia. Chris is an entrepreneur in the home service industry. In fact, he's the owner of the Trusted Toolbox Home Repair. And the things that Chris got to speak about when it comes to taking a chance, taking a leap, developing a business plan, having a culture of teamwork, so much more, you've got to take a listen. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. And I have someone who is going to inspire you today to do that, and took some leaps in his career here to just get all that success going, and who really is going to talk about a culture of teamwork and what hard work can do, and casting a vision, and talking a little bit about business planning. And so I want to introduce to you Chris Lalomia, who is an entrepreneur in the home service industry, and he's also the owner of Trusted Toolbox Home Repair. Chris, it is so awesome to have you on the podcast. How are you?
Great. I'm doing great. Looking forward to having a little conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for doing this, for taking the time to do this. I'm going to start here because I'm really curious. I did some research, but I love how you put that you had that job. I'm trying to say an emphasis for folks that'll just listen. Tell us a little bit about what that job was and how that all evolved, and then why you took that leap and took that chance to leave it.
So I had that job. I had 400 people working for me, a corner office. I was a senior vice president in a large regional bank. I reported to the chief risk officer, reported to the CEO. So while I was still a middle manager, I was pretty high up in the company. I had the custom suits, I had the parking spot, I had the Mercedes, and I just grew to hate it. I wasn't using my whole brain. I wasn't doing everything I wanted to do, and I was just not being fulfilled at the time. So I came home in a fit of rage, told my wife, "That's it." Threw my suit across the room, and she was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, Spur! You got a family to feed here. What are you going to do?" So I did get a break, and I took some time to be very thoughtful, and then created a business plan, and then started the Trusted Toolbox in 2008, right before the recession, because timing is not my best thing.
Those were tough times, definitely 2008, 2000, going into 2009, no doubt. So how did you land into that role that you had? What evolved? Because you obviously really liked that industry at some point. If you stayed there long enough to move up to that level, how did you land that? And then what were a couple of things that sort of made you fall out of love with it?
Yeah, so the first thing was, I think, just like many of us in business, my path to entrepreneurship is not a straight line. It was very circuitous. I came out with a master's in mechanical engineering, worked in manufacturing, but then started to work for a financial services consulting firm called Accenture today. I was with them when they were Anderson Consulting and through the conversion. And I landed that because I was pretty good at what I did. I mean, you got to be self-aware. I love leading people. I was leading small consulting firms and consulting teams, rather. And I got plucked. I was asked to come lead this group and basically transform the organization because the super regional bank was trying to become a bigger player in the market. So I had it. And so what I loved about what I was doing was I was solving problems, and I love seeing teams solve problems together. So I really was in love with the thing. So as I jumped into my first role as an employee, not as a consultant, I was reading things like Peter Drucker, and I was reading John Maxwell and Patrick Lencioni, and just absorbing as much as I could to figure out how to lead a team of 400 people that I probably would never meet all of them, to be frank. They were distributed across the U.S. But I had a great and inspiring boss. She was fired. Technicality, long story short, I went through a series of bosses, and then I landed on that boss hole. And he convinced me that I just was not doing what I love to do. He didn't mean to, but he did. And I was like, I did. I felt like I was trapped. I felt like I was a middle manager. I didn't feel like I could lead as effectively as I had in the past. But I've always wanted to run my own company. So that wasn't the excuse. That was just the impetus to finally push me off and go do what I really wanted to do. Because while it's scary starting a business, I was more scared of being 60, 62 years old going, I wonder if I could have,
Wow.
than I was of, I'll go out there and I could fail. So I started the business at 37, late in life as an entrepreneur, but early enough where I felt like if I failed quickly, that I could probably jump in. So
Right.
now I've been after it for 15 years. Nobody's going to have me back in corporate America.
Yeah. What an amazing, amazing story. Um, I want to jump to this for a second. I want to come back to a couple of things you said, but I really want to hit on this because everything you said is so inspirational for the audience I know that's going to watch this and others. But you talked just now about business plan, and I saw where you really emphasized the importance of that. Talk a little bit about how you developed yours and why that is so important for leaders, especially here in 2023.
Yeah, I can't say enough about having a business plan. By doing the business plan the way I did it, and I put this in my book, is that I'm not looking for you to make an A paper. I'm not looking for you to come up with the most words you can possibly put in there to try to fake through something or convince somebody that this is the right thing. What I did was I used it as a collaborative tool to help me thoughtfully think through. Number one, who is my target market? Number two, how am I going to get the target market to ring my phone and get me in business? Three, how am I going to convert them? Four, how am I going to operate and create the service that I want to create and solve that? And then, of course, there's all the other stuff, hiring people. So I was able to do all of that while I was fully employed. So I was making mistakes and not costing myself any money. I would love to tell you that my business plan kept me from ever losing money in business, but that would be a big lie because I've quote unquote learned a lot of lessons, and they're always.
Yeah. Yeah, but you had something to fall back on though, and able to really look back at maybe an error or two here and there, that was in the plan, and then able to adjust it. Um, I
Exactly right.
I see so many leaders where I'll ask them, hey, so what's your plan for this month? Gonna sell. Okay. What else? And so I love that that you really put everything on paper and had something to fall back on. I love that. Um, when did you know? What was a moment for you, Chris, that you said, you know what, I think I'm going to be able to make it? What was a tipping point during this time? Because that's a big chance. If any of us remember 2008, 2009, that was taking a big chance. That was probably the worst time to jump into being an entrepreneur, but you did it. What was there a moment that you just knew?
Well, I would tell you there were two moments where I just knew that I shouldn't be doing this anymore. I was curled up on the couch, 3:30 in the morning, going, "What have I just done to myself and my family?" And so there are a lot of those dark and lonely paths to be
Yeah.
there, where I felt like I really had. I wouldn't say made it. I actually put this in the book too. I felt like at one point I had made it, but I had a mentor of mine who said, I'm in there telling him how great I was doing. He's like, "Man, you sounds like you're in a rut." I'm like, "No, no, man, I was just telling you I was doing great, man. What? No, whoa, whoa, whoa." And I went back to my office and I was like, "Oh boy, he's right. I'm in a rut." I was able to retool, always continually solving problems and get going. And I felt like right before COVID hit, I felt like we were on the right path. And then COVID hit, and I had to pivot. Now, for me, COVID has turned out to be a good thing long term because people are staying in their houses longer and we have a lot more home services work to do, handyman and remodeling work. So I would tell you, as I joked, I've been at it for it'll be 15 years in April. I'm, just an overnight success just 14 years later. So literally this last year is where I go like, you know what? I think it's finally going to work.
Wow. Wow. And I love that you shared that dark moment first because we've all been there, or at least hopefully we haven't been there, but just
Yeah.
that moment of saying, my goodness, what did I do here? But then picking yourself up at 3:30 in the morning saying, listen, let me get back to work here, because I'm gonna figure this out. I love
Yeah,
that.
it's not all sunshine and roses. It's very tough. It's
Yeah.
dark, sometimes lonely. You have to fall back on a lot of things, and you can fall back on your faith. You can fall back on your virtues. You can fall back on whatever you have.
Yeah.
You really have to know that, and you have to be solid because when you're going through those dark times, you got to be able to pick it up. But you're right. I was up the next morning, out there, figured out a problem, sold a couple big jobs that morning. I was able to get the guys busy back again, and we just hadn't looked back since.
Wow. Love that, Chris. That's awesome. I want to now jump into teamwork because you've mentioned that a few times. And you talk about lone wolf versus and wolf pack. And so I know a lot of lone wolves out there, man, that that fail forward pretty quickly at times, you know. What did you mean by that? Talk about what your philosophy is of teamwork.
Yeah, let me talk about this. So in the blue collar space that I'm in, I have handymen. They're really skilled trades. So think of yourselves, the electricians and the plumbers you may know, but these guys know a little bit about a lot of stuff in a house. So as a handyman, we get to do a lot of different things. And what I found is that what makes them successful is many of these guys never had their own resume, never really worked for somebody, not for very long, but they're a skilled trade and they view themselves as a lone wolf, meaning
Mm.
they can forage for themselves, they can provide shelter, they can provide for their family, they can do what they need to do. And what we do is we invite them into our wolf pack. And what we do when they come into our wolf pack is say, hey, we got some rules. And in our rules, customers first. So we are a customer first company. And we're also going to tell you about our cultures and our 5 principles in our company. And we're going to invite you in and say, this is a better place for you to be able to forage and provide for your family and hit your own personal and professional goals. But one thing I will tell you that as you do that, there are a lot of lone wolves that come together in the wolf pack. So as the leader of the wolf pack, you have to watch how you manage these guys.
Mm.
And in the gig economy workplace like today, if I were to give them too many processes, if I was going to choke them down and tell them, no way, don't ever think for yourself, and I start solving their problems for them, well, where do dogs come from? They come from lone wolves years ago that got domesticated. And
Yep.
what do dogs do? They expect you to feed them, shelter them, and take care of them. So I need my guys to be lone wolves. So there's always that fine line of you're going to follow things my way because I'm showing you the benefit of doing it my way will help you get an easier transaction that day, maybe put some more money in your pocket, but also get rewarded for the skill and the artist that you are.
Wow, man, I love that. That is fantastic. And it's such a combination. You know what's running through my mind is, you know, I love sports, so it's running through my mind how you know you may have this great player, you have LeBron James, let's say, but yet he still has to play within, and you don't want to stifle him, right? You want him to run out there, you want him to do his thing, but you also want him to play within the context of the team. And you know, with the folks that are highly skilled that you have, that's got to be tricky to have that balance. But it sounds like you've really nailed it. That is so awesome.
We use the analogy of a baseball team more than a
Yeah,
basketball team. Because if you think about it, if you and I were on the same baseball team, I'm not going to make you a better hitter, but being a good teammate, I'm going to cheer you on. Yeah,
yeah,
if we're out there in the field and we got to turn a double play, which is the quintessential teamwork, you got to count on everybody else doing your their part right. So your estimator has to sell it, your scheduler has to get it scheduled. Then out there and you got to drive it home. And if you were to just be that lone wolf, you get the ball at shortstop. The last time I saw a double play was the guy touching the second base and running over to first base was T-ball.
yeah.
So we're playing in the big leagues, and so we talk about that.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, baseball is definitely a better analogy there. I love that. Okay, this one I'm really curious about because I think I know where you're going, and I stopped reading on purpose because I wanted to hear you talk about the vanity line versus the sanity line.
You bet.
What did you mean by that?
So if you're ever out networking, and that's one of the things that I love to do is get out and meet with other entrepreneurs, especially here in the Atlanta area where I'm at, but also virtually. Your vanity line is, hey, how much did you gross last year? Well, I'll lay it out there, right? I grossed over 5 million. Wow, Chris, that's amazing. Yeah, that's my vanity line. Let me tell you how much I took home. That's my sanity line. And guess what? It's pretty low. It's a low margin business I'm in. And
Yeah.
so that's the sanity line. As they say, sometimes is the juice worth the squeeze. And that's the one that is tough. So you can have a vanity line and when you talk to people, but really when you're running your business, know your numbers and get down to that sanity line because that's what you're going to have to be working with.
Oh man, I love that. I can remember my days running a McDonald's restaurant when I was a young kid. You know, we'd bring in all these top line sales, and then you know I'd look at the bottom line. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it. You know, after I got to do a better job controlling all my expenses and everything. You know, I love that. That's a great analogy, and because it'll humble you when you look at the end of the month, all this work we did, and this is what we have, you know. We need to go back to the drawing board. I love that. I love that. Okay, I can't let you go without getting some advice on how you would define success here in 2023. it's a different year. It's tough. Your business has to be really, really competitive. What are 2 or 3 things that you are going to define success when you get to the end of 2023?
So and the 1 year goal, which I'm getting ready to have a strategic meeting with my team. One is to improve that vanity line, number one. And I'm going to do that at the gross profit level. That's the first thing. We're looking to see about a 20 to 25% growth, even with the impending recession. So for 23, I'm looking to be able to know my numbers and hold on to my numbers and not let things slip away, which we pick a word of the year for our company, and everybody has to pick a word of the year for themselves. Last year, our word of the year was your attitude reflects your altitude. So attitude, altitude. This year, it's going to be finish. Finish what you're supposed to do. Finish with the flourish. Have a strong finish. Remember that the finish is what the customer remembers the most. And in my case, it'll be finish the job each month to make sure that your sanity line is there. It's not about me making the money. It's about me having enough money to go buy more trucks, put more wraps in place. And then for me personally, at the end of 23, is to be able to identify a successor or somebody who can start to take my place, to allow me to go do some other things that I want to be doing. I have a podcast and I like doing that. I like to do speaking engagements to get out there and promote my book a little bit. So I'd like to do that in another year.
Wow. That is all awesome. And some really clear lines on what success is going to look like for you. And I'm hoping that as leaders listen to this, that they think as long-term as you do, because you already are thinking about the end of the year. That's fantastic. So Chris, couple of last quick things. What is the name of your book?
So my book's called From the Zoo to the Wild, Your Guide to Entrepreneurial Freedom and Wealth. And it is a safari theme because I was in the corporate zoo and I was intoxicated and I was fed all these great bananas. And it starts with me going to see a famous gorilla here in the Atlanta Zoo when I was with my kids. And I looked at him and said, look at you. You're supposed to be this king of the world and out there in the jungle. And here you are on these 4 walls and people are just feeding you bananas while you spin a tire. And I walked away and I went, oh my God, that's me. And so I talk about there is the journey I went through, the planning process and really figuring out who I was and what I wanted to do. And then ultimately what it is to try to scale a home services business. And it's a pretty quick read. I've got a number of people who told me they've read it over the weekend. It doesn't take a lot. And I did it. I wrote it for somebody like myself. I'm not looking for War and Peace. I'm not looking for the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People where you should really be stopping, pausing, really reflecting. Here, I think it's a quick read and you just pick up your gold nuggets as you go along.
Oh, that's awesome. I will make sure that is in the notes and I will pick one up and I'll send you some feedback. And I'll read it over this weekend coming up. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'll also post your website. Your website is awesome. Very, very user-friendly on how folks can get in touch with you. Are you just there in the Atlanta area or are you around in other places too?
I have one other place. We're in Athens, Georgia, where it's
okay.
the home of University of Georgia. So we started a new office out there. So go Dogs, as we say here, national champ twice in a row.
Yeah. Yes.
So we're all excited. But we just started that one, and then I'm looking to start one more in the next year or two. And that way I'll have a multiple unit concept and then hopefully look to use that to expand on.
Okay. I will direct people to there because I think especially in that area where you're at, it would be great to use you, but also great to from anybody all over the country to hear you speak and get your advice, which has been spectacular. So that was such a close national championship game. I know you were just biting your nails, right?
That's the first time. In fact, one of my buddies said, you're just not swearing as much as normal. I said, I didn't think it was going to go this quick. I wasn't sure what was going on.
I actually watched it with someone who lives in Athens and it was 45-7 and he was still nervous. It's like, it's not over yet. I was like, TCU's not coming back. I'm sorry. They're not coming back.
Yeah, I know. For the rest of the country, it wasn't a great game to watch, but my son's a junior there right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I stayed and watched the whole thing. Yeah, I reveled in it.
Awesome. Awesome. Chris, this has been an honor and a pleasure to talk with you, to get all of the knowledge that you dropped on us today. We'll make sure we get this out and spread the word. And God bless you, man. And best of luck to everything in your business. But I'm going to send you some feedback on your book. I can't wait to pick it up.
All right, I'll take it. I'm always open for bring it all. Both barrels. Yeah.
All right, folks, this has been Kenny and Chris. This has been the Leading from the Middle podcast. We will talk to you real soon. Thank you again, Chris.
All right. Thanks again.